Okay. So thank you again for such a spontaneous talk with me. It's really lovely to see you.
Yeah.
I know that you are always a very welcomed guest in our institute, and you're a very special person for all our team. And
Yeah, I know that.
so it's my pleasure to talk to you today. So shall we start with some of my questions? Okay, because I know that you are a busy person, so I don't want to waste a lot of time. If you can just tell something about your personal life in the beginning, because I know that not everybody knows you. So where were you born? What were your parents doing? What were your grandparents doing? This is something really special and really interesting.
Yeah. I was born in the north of France, close to Belgium.
Okay.
In the country. My grandparents were very simple people. They were working on leather tanner. Do you understand this word? Yeah. From the skin of a cow or any kind of animal, they were making leather.
Okay.
So it was very simple work, dirty work, hard work.
And hard work, yes.
Yeah, very hard. And my father was the first one to get up in the society because he was an engineer, technical engineer, and he started. He has been one of the pioneers in France about making plastic things.
Okay.
For it was the beginning, very small pieces in plastic. It was when I was born 65 years ago or 70 years ago, and he was one of the first in France to start plastic. Wow. And he was very, very proud about that, thinking we could make everything with plastic, bottles, and pieces for cars, wheels, and so on and so on.
Was he already concerned by that time about the ecological?
Not at all.
Not at all.
At the beginning, for example, for him to make plastic bags, it was so wonderful. He said, yeah, it's much better than paper because we don't have to cut trees and so on and so on. So he was very proud. But at the end of he's dead now. At the end of his professional life, he started to think
more.
We will get in trouble because with the plastic, the ecological issues, what to do with plastic anymore, and so on.
Yes, because it cannot be dissolved in years and years and years. That's
but at the beginning, it was a great hope for him.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. And what about you? How did you end up being one of the most famous psychotherapists in France? How did it happen?
I went to, I am engineer, mechanical engineer at the beginning. And my father wanted me to take his factory so he had a great hope on me. And so I went to university and so on. I learned mechanical and all these technical topics. But I thought it was not so good for me. But I finished my studies. And then I started as an engineer. I have been working 2 years as an engineer.
As an engineer.
I was working in coal mines.
Okay, you were working really deep down yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
1,000 meters down. The darkness and so on and so on. I thought, no, I don't want to do that all my life. I explained that to my father that I didn't want to stay engineer. And I spent 2 years as a civil volunteer in Africa and Mexico too.
And in which country in Africa? Where did you go?
Rhodesia, in the south, close to South Africa.
Okay.
And Kenya also, and so on. English speaking.
Yeah.
It's
And what were you doing there?
English. Yeah.
What were you doing?
I was working with poor people, especially about finding water, because they need water. There is a lack of water.
Clear.
So we were digging holes, and I don't know the English name anymore.
The well.
Yeah, well,
The well.
yeah. And after 2 years, I decided to come back to France because I wanted to meet people, to have friends, and so on and so on. I thought 2 years as a volunteer with no money, nothing.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back, and I met Chantal.
Yes, your wife.
Chantal, my wife, and she said, it's a funny story. She was a psychologist.
Okay.
At that time, and she started a psychotherapy at that time for herself.
Okay.
And she told me, if you want to marry me, you have to go to psychotherapy first. I will never marry a man without psychotherapy. I knew nothing about that. Nothing in my family. Even the word psychology was unknown.
Yeah.
And so I found a psychotherapist, and I told me, I don't know exactly why I am here, but I want to marry Chantal, so I come for a woman.
Okay.
So he laughed about that. He said, no, it's not only for that. It's because maybe you have to work on yourself. And so I started my psychotherapy like that, just to make love with a woman.
Okay. But I think, it's one of the most lovely stories I've ever heard about how you become a famous psychotherapist, because you just want to have this woman, and because you want to do something to get her. And to get her, you really need to invest in something more than just a diamond ring or a handbag or a dinner. You invest in yourself.
And flowers. So, and I thought it was wonderful. I found a good psychotherapist. And after that, I decided to join a group, and it was with Serge and Anne Ginger.
Okay.
I thought it was very interesting. I preferred to be in group because there is more energy, more live in group therapy, in my opinion, at least. And they were practicing Gestalt. Okay. So I started to love Gestalt, and that's all. And then I was in the first group when they train people.
Okay.
In EPG, the Parisian School of Gestalt. I was in the first group 30 years ago. More. Yeah, 30 more. Years ago, something like that. Yeah. More, maybe more. Yeah. And that's how I became a psychotherapist slowly. And after that, EPG was becoming bigger, and they asked me to work with them. Yeah. And you know the story after that.
How was it, if I may ask something more personal about that, how was it for your friends and for your family, the fact that you have high education, you are an engineer, it's a respectful and profitable profession in France, and suddenly you go for psychology, for psychotherapy, say, well, I just want to do something else, and this something else is psychology.
Yeah. First, for my father, it was difficult for him because he understood nobody will carry on his business, the factory. And so after a few years, he sold the factory, he retired, and a lot of people were surprised with my decision. And when I was joking, I do that for a wife, for my wife and son. Of course, they didn't trust me. It was not. You don't go to psychotherapy only for one people. You go for yourself, of course. But a lot of people were very surprised with my decision. Okay. Because, for example, for the money, it's very different. Psychotherapists who earn not little money, but just sufficient money. But as engineer, it's the upper social class, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But I never regret that. Never.
Yeah, I see. Let me come to the next question. Yeah. What do you consider to be the most challenging part of your work as a psychotherapist? Maybe there are some special topics which are demanding for you. Maybe there are some type of clients which are demanding. Maybe, I don't know, there is just, what is challenging for you? What requires some more effort from you as a psychotherapist?
Probably people who suffer from depression.
From depression.
Yeah, because I feel full of energy. I love life. I love taking risks and things like that. And so I think I'm better with clients with good energy and even hysterical people, but people who suffer from, who are depressed, sometimes it's boring for me.
Okay.
And I know it's hopeless to push them.
Yes.
If they suffer from depression, just to say, hello, do something, find something, and so it's hopeless. It never works.
No,
but for me, sometimes it's boring.
Okay, I see. And what are you proud of professionally? Because you have really a great career as a psychotherapist. I mean, I think you are known worldwide, not only in Europe, in Western and Eastern Europe. I think you're known also in US. Those who practice Gestalt therapy, they know you. And there are plenty of books you've written. And I really admire that they are very simple, that you use very simple language when you write them. So everybody who is not only psychotherapist can read them. Yeah. Because I know I have heard that that some people are comparing your books with books of Serge and Anna Ginger, you know. And for me, it's like to compare you are blonde and somebody is brunette, you know. It's just so different because they don't have the same goal. It's clear that they were writing for professionals, for psychologists, for those who really are in profession, and you were writing for vast majority of normal people who come from other professions. So of course you cannot use the same language. And you were director of École Parisienne de Gestalt for many years, and you practice internationally, you teach internationally. What is something you personally are proud of?
I think what I am proud of is to have been able to work with Serge and Anne Ginger. And when they decided to retire, I have done a lot of things after them. And because at the beginning, a lot of people told me it's impossible to work with Serge because he's a kind of genius, but very difficult to focus on one topic and so on. And people told me he will kill you. He wants you to work with him, and he will shout you because it's very difficult with Serge to have other man with him.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Other men. You mean there is this male concurrence?
Yeah. Okay. Because few people try to work with him and
never succeeded.
They never succeeded. And Serge was able to work with women,
Yeah.
your mother, for example, and so on.
Yeah.
But with men, it was, even with Dima, Serge and Dima, sometimes
Yes.
it was a kind of competition and so on. And I don't understand exactly why, but with me, we had no competition and not at all. And for example, on the international field, it helped me quite a lot to be known in Russia, in Poland, and so on, all this part of Europe. And he also helped me in California, in USA, and so on. So we had no competition between. And I was proud about that.
Okay.
Yeah. It was not so easy to be the director of EPG, for example, because he has been my psychotherapist, Serge and Anne, in group psychotherapy. And after that, I became the director. So, for example, I had to pay them at the end of the month.
Yes.
To say, you trained for EPG, so here are your wages and so on. You know, it's on a symbolic level. It's not so easy to do that.
No, of course not.
Or sometimes when we disagreed, or when we were not okay to do the same thing and so on, sometimes it was difficult. But we made it.
Okay.
I think we had love together.
You had love together.
Yeah, sure.
But I think Serge treated you really like his son in a way. He was really putting his fatherhood love in you. When I saw you together, it was like that for me. And Anna for sure took you as a son.
And you know, they had 4 children, Serge and Anne, just one boy. And sometimes this boy was jealous because I was a kind of son for Serge.
Kind of son, yes. Plus you worked together, so clearly you had a lot of time together, and there was a lot of closeness and topics to discuss.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And what do you think are the key professional qualities which make you a good psychotherapist? Because I have seen your work many times on the seminars, I know the way you work, but it's interesting how you think about that, how you evaluate yourself.
I would say 2 things. The first one is my feminine part of myself. I think a lot of men are only masculine, and I always I am happy to be masculine and feminine. Sometimes I dream about me as a woman, for example.
Wow.
At night, sometimes in my dreams, I am a woman. It's funny, I don't know why, but I know, for example, my mother wanted to have a girl.
Okay.
Because her first child was a boy, my brother. Yeah. And after that, she wanted a girl at that time. And I don't know if it has been important in my life, but my feminine part is very
important. And when you say your feminine part, what do you mean by that? Because feminine part, there are a lot of, there is erotic part, there is acceptance, there is spontaneous things, there are emotions, there are all these soft skills which are considered to be as feminine.
Yeah, sure. I would say I feel very close with my emotion.
Okay.
Something like that. For example, very often I blush up when I am surprised. I blush, or I can cry in a therapeutical session. I could cry, and so I feel very emotional. Okay. And I think people love that from a psychotherapist to be.
Yeah.
Did you know Joseph Zinker, for example?
I haven't seen him personally because he was already sick.
Yeah.
By,
Oh, yeah.
Like now he's so he
very sick in
met.
Brazil. Yeah. But he was the same kind of psychotherapist, very sometimes crying or saying, no, it's too difficult for me, I have to cry or something like that. And I thought it was a good model for me.
Okay.
So maybe that's one thing. And probably the other people, as a trainer or as a psychotherapist, I use very simple words, as you said. I never start in a big, in a huge theory and so on and so on. So people, I think people like that, to have a psychotherapist or a trainer with very simple words and explanations. And
Okay.
That's two things, I think.
Okay. And what do you think are the professional limitations for this profession? If we can talk about that, like there are people who would not succeed in being a successful, effective, and good psychotherapist.
Yeah.
What are the qualities of these people? If we can talk about that, like
with people who can't work as psychotherapists or who have no success, you mean?
Yes. People who try to work as psychotherapists, but they will not succeed. What are their professional limitations? What are the qualities of these people? Like I could give you an example. If I want to be a ballet dancer, I don't think I will succeed because I have, first, I'm too old for that. And my body structure is not good for that. And this is something I cannot change already. If I want to be an opera singer, my voice is not really good for that. So this is a limitation, a clear, objective limitations. I can sing good on stage. I can be a good jazz singer, but I cannot be an opera soprano. That will never happen.
As a trainer in EPG, I train a lot of different groups, of course, and with the team, we often discussed at the end of the training. We could say, we were able to say, this one will have success. It will work quite well. This one will never have a good work, and so on and so on. And at least in Gestalt, I think people who give explanations, who say, you should do that, I give you an advice, and so on and so on, it never works in Gestalt. I mean, to be a good psychotherapist, you need empathy, sympathy or empathy. And as long as you give explanations,
there is no empathy.
It doesn't work in Gestalt. Maybe in other kind of psychotherapy, in NLP or I don't know. But in Gestalt, the less advices you give, the better the client can find his own solution, his own way.
Okay.
And another idea which comes to me, a bad psychotherapist always stays in his armchair. If you never move, if you never take the risk to move, to do body work and so on, I think it's a pity.
It's a pity.
We should take the risk of moving and using creativity, drawing something, or using, I don't know, clay to model something, or any kind of experimentations are very useful. And psychotherapists who never use experimentations, I think they miss something.
They miss.
In my opinion.
Okay. To continue that topic, so I have seen you working at the seminars, and I know that you do a lot of experiments in your work.
Yeah.
And clearly there are two, let's put it this way, two branches of Gestalt approach, New York Gestalt approach and more Cleveland Gestalt approach, or California Gestalt approach, which is, so one is more theoretical and they work more in a dialogue regime, in a dialogue way, and they don't use as much experiments as the second branch, where the dialogue is always combined with experiment, and almost in every session you would offer some experiment, some exercise, something to do. What do you think, how can you compare these two models, these two ways of working? Because I know there are plenty of research, for example, in Canada, Leslie Greenberg, for example, with his rational emotional therapy, he was doing a lot of comparison of using emotions, using experiment versus not using. I know there is a, what's his name? Mr. Kasper. He's a cognitive behavioral therapist who used to be president of the International Federation of Psychotherapy, a world organization. And so he works in Bern, the way I know him, because I live in Switzerland. So I had a chance to know him. And he's doing a lot of research in CBT, and he's comparing to use CBT without emotions, just in the dialogue regime, in an instruction, in a technique, or with emotions. And he was doing that for years. But I'm really curious to know your point of view, because even in Gestalt approach, there are these two branches.
Yeah, sure.
So what do you think?
I have been to Cleveland and New York, the east part, and also to California, in Los Angeles, San Francisco. SLN is a big place in SLN. And I prefer California way of working, of course. Me. Yeah. And I would say, first of all, because it's better for me.
Yes.
If I do in individual or group, if it's only discussion or after a while I get bored. So when I do experimentations, first of all, it's for me.
Okay.
Because it's my pleasure, of course. But that's not the only reason, of course.
Of course.
The second reason is that I do think that with experimentations, with body work, breathing more, with more oxygen and so on, I think the client has less resistances. Because in experimentation, it's new for him because he have never done this kind of experimentation. For example, on topic of sexuality, for example, you know, we are used to speak about sexuality, but if we do theater about that, sculpture, drawings, and so on, very often it's new for the client, and so you discover quickly new opportunities, new things, and so on. And for me, in only speaking is not enough.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the most important way of working for me. And I don't remember, when I trained with you in the group, I do remember about you, but was it sexuality, the topic? Or
no, it was existential pressures. Existential pressures. Yes.
With papers and so on, yeah.
But we would really like to invite you again. We're just waiting for this COVID to pass because, for example, Peter Schultes he is hoping to come in the end of November. But, you know, Switzerland is closing the boundaries again, and France has this
it's
the
terrible.
numbers are rising there, so we cannot cross, and so we don't know. But as soon as it comes down and gets more quiet, we would love you to come, really.
Yeah. But look, on this topic about existentialism.
Yes.
If I only train with words and explanations and so on, it's boring after a while.
Yeah.
We have to play with that just to understand what these different existentialist pressures, what they are in our body, how we feel about that.
Okay.
That's typical for me.
Okay. So let me just switch to another mode like that. I put to another mode and I continue to ask questions just to change a picture a little bit. Because, with this clip way of thinking nowadays, you need really to keep it short and to keep always moving. I would like to ask you now a little bit about your practice in organizational consulting. Because you are really one of the people whom I personally know who work both in psychotherapy and in coaching and organizational consulting. And you don't only work in coaching, by that I mean individual coaching. I know that you have big projects with big companies, and this is my personal interest because I always work with companies. And I work as a business trainer and as a psychotherapist. That's why I would like you to, that's why it's my personal pleasure to talk to you a little bit about that. Can you tell us a little bit about, I don't know, maybe two of the most interesting projects you have done with your team in organizational consulting?
Yes, for example, I am still working in a big computer company. No, they don't make computers, but they make programs and
software company.
Software company. And
what do you do there?
Pardon? In Paris.
Yes, what do you do there? Can you tell more about this? Why do they ask a psychotherapist to come to an IT company?
Yeah, they ask a coach to come, not a psychotherapist. So
but they know that you have both skills.
Yeah, sure. And I think I know they also feel safe because I am engineer.
Okay.
Sometimes they tell me that they didn't want to have a psychologist, psychotherapist, and so they are afraid of that. They say, you are engineer, so you are concrete.
Okay.
You do something not only
only in the sky.
In the sky, yeah. The cloud, I joke with the cloud, but not in the sky. And but what I do with them is not far from psychotherapy. What is very difficult is to sell the project, to start, because they are afraid and they say, we need a program to know where we will do the first day, the second day, the third day, and so they need for security. And the more I do that, the more I say, no, I have no program, nothing. We will start with what happens today. So it's difficult to sell that, to sell the project. But so, for example, in this company, very often I have the full team, a manager in a team, let's say 10 people, 12 people, and the first morning I start to tell them, I have no program, I don't know what to do, but we will start again together to build a program. And so very often people say, I feel anxious with no program, with nothing And I say, okay, for example, I take them by the hand. I say, so stand up and show me where this anxiety is in your body. Mm-hmm. And and we start a role play with that, and so on. So I say, okay, something is coming in the field, and the less I give a program, the better it works.
Okay.
But it's not easy to
sell.
But
and what is the outcome? Like in the end, what do they say? Because I know that you said you work for this company for already a long time, right?
Yeah.
So what do they say in the end? Obviously, they like you if they continue to buy you. So, what do they say?
Very often they say, they use a kind of metaphor, and they say the trash is full of all the things, all the business, and they start new kind of relationship between them, because we always have an unfinished business. That's the Gestalt, unfinished Gestalt, and so on. 2 years ago, you said that to me, and I feel not safe because of that and that. So we try to put all things in the trash. And very often they say that, or they say other metaphors like, it's like taking a shower. I feel clean. I have no dust on me anymore, and we start. And I think it's a good way of avoiding conflicts in a team, to take 2 days or 3 days every 2 years, every 3 years, something like that, to take a shower together, something like that.
To take a shower together, okay.
So they love this kind of metaphor, and they remind it.
Okay. I'm thinking now, just recently I had a supervision group, and a participant there was telling that, so she's a lawyer originally, and she practiced for many years as a lawyer, and she's very successful. And now she turns her head to psychotherapy. And of course, her colleagues are saying, well, why? They're surprised. They say, well, that's strange. And I'm thinking now that it's really something which is usually not, we don't talk about that in order to build trust between a psychotherapist and a client, quite often we need to have a common ground. Like you said, they trust me because I'm an engineer originally. So they think I am concrete. This is projection. I mean, you could be anything even though you are an engineer. But it's easier for them to buy you, to buy your project because you are an engineer. So if I am a lawyer and a psychotherapist for a big law company, it's maybe easier to buy me, because they think I know what they are really going through, and I know it from my experience.
Yeah, and you have those, the words they use, and the vocabulary, and the way they work, of course,
Yes, yeah. Okay.
But you can't be any kind of business, and
of course, yeah, of course not. I want to talk a little bit about some personal things. I know that you have 4 children. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you have 3 sons and 1 girl. Okay. How was it for you to become a father the first time? Can you tell us something?
Yeah. It was I think it's the best part of my life, to be a father. To be, I think, for me, to be a father is probably more important to be a husband.
Than to be a husband.
Yeah. My pleasure, my energy, my love is very for my 4 children, I think.
Okay. And how is it for Chantal, for your wife?
She knows that, and maybe Chantal, difficult to say about her. I think to be a father is more important for me than for her to be a mother.
Okay.
It takes a lot of energy, a lot of love, and for example, yesterday I was with Celestine, my daughter, and we spent a full day together.
How old is she now, Celestine?
42.
42. What did you do full day?
Because we wanted to be together, and
yes, but what did you do with her the full day yesterday?
I helped. She's married, but her husband was not there. He came only late in the evening, so I helped her with. She has 2 children, a boy, 2 boys, and so she wanted to have also freedom for. Being at home and doing things. So I took the 2 boys and we went walking in the city and things like that. So that's an example of being a grandfather. But being a grandfather is very important for me too.
Okay.
And Celestine, we have a lot of things to share because she is gestaltist too.
Okay.
She's psychotherapist. She's a dancer. So she mixed dancing and gestalt. In groups, they use dance for expressing their emotions and their feelings. And so her group are always full of people with a waiting list and so on. So we discuss very often about that, and because I try to work less and less, but she's in full energy of.
Well, you know, I remember Serge. He told me once. He said, "Well, you know, Anna, now I am a pensioner, so I try to work less. I never work more than 8 hours a day now."
But yeah, Serge was working.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, he could work non-stop. That's true.
Yeah.
Talking about your kids, how do you think? What is the one of? Well, I don't like these questions. You know, main lesson or one thing you learned. But what is something important you have learned from being a father? Because when you have a kid, it changes your life completely.
Yeah, sure.
So,
probably the first thing I think about is to save time for them, for family life. For example, even when I was EPG director, I never worked on a Wednesday, because Wednesday is a day where they have no school.
Yes, children don't go to school.
And, so I never worked on Wednesday. I always, when I trained groups, or it was on weekends, but Wednesday was
reserved for family.
Life. And I think to save time for your family life or couple life and so on is very important, because in this kind of work, psychotherapies and so on, when you have success, you can always work and have more clients, have more training groups and more supervision and so on. And I think it's difficult to save time for family life.
Okay, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I have one question from my husband to you, from Gilles. So when I told him that I'm going to talk to you today, he told me, well, remember, well, he said it in French, but I say in English so that people can understand us. He said, remember when we had a dinner with Gonsag at our place in the kitchen, and suddenly he told that story about that crazy boat trip, transatlantic trip he took when he was young, but he already had 2 kids and they were just 4 in the boat, and they could easily die at that time because there was no satellite equipment and no nothing. Would it be okay for you to tell that story? Because I do think it's marvelous. Because, you know, there is a belief, I don't know how is it in France now, but I clearly see it in here in Russia, that a psychotherapist is a person who controls very well his emotions. He understands his emotions. He's very logic. He can explain a lot of things. And the good psychotherapist is not divorced. He's married. He has kids. He has like life in a candy box in a way. Like everything is good if you are a good psychotherapist. If you have some issues which are like you are too expressive, or you do some crazy things, or you are, I don't know, punk in a way, you know, you wear a hoodie, that's somehow strange. For example, when I wear just a hoodie with this capuchon and I go somewhere, people don't recognize me and they say, oh, that's you. And I said, yeah, that's how I look usually. It's not always I'm in a silk, you know. Sometimes I'm not that. So just to share these personal parts of life, if you can do that, because this was something really crazy, even for me.
Yeah. It was my dream just to cross the ocean like Christophe Colomb and all the people in the 18th century, 17th century and so on. And so we decided with Chantal to cross, we were 4, as you say, to cross the ocean as in the 17th century. So we had no electricity, no radio.
No electricity, no GPS?
No GPS, but at that time, it's 40 years ago, or 45 years, no, 50 years ago. Maybe.
50 years ago. How old were you?
70.
No, 60. How old were you at that time, I mean?
24.
You were 24 years old. And you decided to cross the ocean just with a paddle and the sails, the wind.
Yeah, it was with a sail, but it was a small sailing boat.
Okay.
As I said, no electricity, no telephone, no radio, nothing. Just even for water, we had plastic cans for water and no fridge, of course. So we started with oranges and so on, but apples and so on. But after a week or 10 days.
And you started from where?
From what we call West Indies, Martinique.
Martinique.
Guadeloupe. Do you say where in Guadeloupe? We started from Guadeloupe.
From Guadeloupe, yeah.
All the way back to France.
Okay.
Which is the more difficult way because you are against the wind. Mm-hmm. So you have to...
you have to go with gulls.
Yeah. So it's much more difficult than to go to West Indies. You are pushed by the wind.
And why did you choose the more difficult way? Tell me.
For pleasure. I mean, if you like climbing mountains, you try to do more and more difficult mountains and so on. You don't want to go to a small mountain. You want to go to Everest or I don't know which kind of mountains.
Okay.
For me, it was the same, and so it has been very difficult, but we made it in 1 month.
How was it to take shower? Because there's no water, there's no shower.
No water, nothing. You can live with 2 liters every day. That's enough.
Okay.
Even to brush your teeth.
Yeah, to brush your teeth, that's enough.
Salted water.
Yeah.
To cook potatoes, you put salt water. So only to drink. Yes. You have only water to drink. Okay. And so we could take a bucket of salted water in the ocean and to take a shower. It was like that. Okay. That's all. And we had a big storm. So maybe I explain you. No. The rudder was broken in this big storm. So we had no rudder anymore. So I made a new one with some pieces in the boat. Le plancher, what's the name of plancher? The
wood.
The flat part, the wood.
The wood.
Wooden fat plate. So we took it, and with a saw, I made a new rudder. And so after 2 days, during 2 days, we were locked with no rudder. And so we started with a new rudder. Okay. And that's...
And when, at that time, I think you already had 2 kids. Is that so?
Yeah.
So you really could risk your life, and you could never arrive to France, right?
Yeah, sure. But
how did you make it? That decision? I know you are 24. When you are 24, you make other decisions than when you are 44. Clearly, but still, what was going on in your brain, in your mind? Because you were always a great father. I know that you invested a lot, like you said now, that you invested in kids a lot. Your love, your emotions.
I still feel the emotion when we arrived into the French coast, and I was crying to see we were just arriving. And so, yeah, of course we took a risk, of course. But the same, if you like climbing mountains, you can have children and climb mountains or do any kind of car competition or anything. Of course, it's a risk. But
how did you decide to take it? Do you remember what was going on in your mind? Were you hesitating? Were you thinking that, well, maybe if I die, then they stay with their grandparents, how to grow them, or how was it?
Yeah, of course, it was a dream for me from my teenage age. So I took maybe 10 years before doing that. So I had time to think about it and to say what is okay for me to do that, and during 1 full month we had no news from France, from our kids and so on. When I went La Rochelle, the harbor was La Rochelle, and I put some coins in the phone machine to have news. I said maybe in 10 minutes I will be completely, because something happened to my children or something. I still see me putting coins in the phone machine saying, and so my our kids were with Chantal's family, Chantal's parents. And when my mother-in-law took the phone and said, "Oh, you are in France. What a good news. They are in good state." And so it was a good release for me.
Okay, I see.
But I think sometimes we have to live our dreams. You know, if you always stop yourself because it's risky for my children, for my professional life, for my money, for, you know, you never do anything.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. It's a balance between taking risk and, of course, not too many risks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to ask.
We will say hello to your husband about this story, if he still reminds.
Well, you know, my husband is doing mountain biking on a crazy level. So he goes down this black slope with a mountain bike. And before we met, he was not using a helmet. And I said, look, and once he was very proud and he showed me, look, on some, you know, this GPS machine, he Garmin, whatever thing, he showed me, you know, see, I have 50 kilometers per hour, I'm going down. Like a, you know, like with boys, you know, guys are always like kids when they do something crazy. And I said, yeah, but where is your helmet? Because you just came down, I don't see the helmet on you or on your bike. And he said, oh, I never had one.
So you said...
Quoi? Mais tu achètes la casque tout de suite.
Tu achètes le casque.
Tu achètes le casque, tu peux pas faire ça. Avec moi, c'est plus possible. Because, yeah, I said, okay, of course you can take this risk and go for your dreams, but you do it somehow responsible.
It's easier, of course.
Like that. Okay, I would like to ask one question. You know, I would use your free time to have a supervision. I thought about that. That maybe you would give me an advice, and maybe this question would be also important for people who are going to listen to that, for our students. So quite often I have clients who they've never met me yet, they've never came to therapy, and they want therapy, but then they say, but I hesitate whether I should come or not because I don't know what to ask from therapy. I don't have a clear task. I don't have I cannot formulate what I want. And I think I need to think more about that before I come.
Yeah.
So they have this idea in their mind that consciously they can put a task on the table, you know, like in coaching, formulate a goal, formulate where they want to go, put a symptom on the table and say, okay, I have this symptom, I have this goal, and I want to get rid of that, and I want to get there, and here we come. This is our therapy. What would you say to such client? What would you tell to such client in the beginning? Because it's clear he wants to come, but he has this idea in his head which is not letting him to be fully there.
Mm-hmm. And do you mean to ask by phone at the beginning, or when they enter your cabinet, when they're with you? Both.
By phone, by SMS, by WhatsApp, or you know, nowadays we can use this technology. We can even record a short video. I don't know, 3 minutes talk to clients who are struggling with this type of problem, or in the cabinet. I mean, anything you want.
Very often I use metaphor to help them to understand what is psychotherapy, what they can discover. And I say, we know everything on the earth, or even on the moon. We have been there. We know we have maps of the moon. We have maps of Amazonia, or any kind of desert or Sahara or Mongolia or je sais pas. I don't know, but I said the only country nobody knows is your internal country. That's because you will be, so it's normal, you don't know what to discover, you don't know which aim you have and so on. The only thing you could do is to go on a virgin country.
On a Virgin Island.
Yeah, Virgin Island. If you are interested to put your feet on a Virgin Island, that's psychotherapy. That's what we could do together, just to explore, to discover this Virgin Island. And very often, so I say, I have no plan, no aim, and it's normal. You have no. You don't focus on a precise objective, but that the best discover we can do together is your virginity. I don't say that to women at the first time to discover your virginity, but it's a kind of metaphor, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I see. I understand very well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, just to finish on this topic, and also I will use drawings or something like that, very quickly to help them to feel their emotions, or we could do a play role, or we can be explorateur. You understand?
Explorateur, ouais.
Explorateur together, or we will.
Explorer, I think in English.
Explorer. What do you see? What? How is the weather in this island and so on? So we can play like that.
Okay. Let me again switch the mode like that. Just to have a few last questions. If you may give some advice for people who are just starting their professional way as a psychotherapist, what would you say nowadays? Because I mean, probably you would give some other advice 30 years ago, you would give some other advice 15 years ago, and nowadays with this modern, changing, strange world, what would you say?
I have no advice.
No, you use metaphor, or you can do a role play, you can move your body.
But the first idea is it's a job, you can't make it just alone. I mean, just to say, okay, I am a psychotherapist, I put a sign on the wall or outside and so on, or I will make some flyers or some. It's very difficult to start like that. It's very useful to be grounded in your city, for example, with social workers, with doctors, with a lot of people, and they will send you some new clients. So I would say try to improve your network, people you know, and even people who sell bread and so on. Tell them you are a psychotherapist now, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, I will say that to my husband." You have to speak about that.
Okay.
And to find very simple words to explain what you offer. A lot of new psychotherapists start, I'm doing gestalt, I work in the field theory, and so on and so on. people don't understand nothing. The field theory is very interesting for us, but not for new clients. So you have to find new, very simple words who are okay for you as a psychotherapist. You know, because to give a good explanation, you have to feel the words, your words, and not words in a book or words from your trainer or words from your supervisor, but your own.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I would say that.
I see. The other question is, what do you personally think about working online as a Gestalt therapist? Because it starts to be, you know, well, anyway, online trainings of a lot of different approaches of psychotherapy start to be popular. People start to almost change online work with offline work. What do you think of that?
I think it's impossible in Gestalt to make it only online. For example, I see with my clients, I have less and less clients because it's okay for me. But my clients, if we started psychotherapy in my cabinet, we can do some meetings online, from time to time. Let's say 1 out of 2 or something like that. But to start online, for me, it's impossible.
Okay.
I have to, I do that with my hands. I have to meet people, to
meet people. You have to meet people. Yeah.
To meet people and even their body. And, you know, and for training, it's for me the same. I mean, it's boring to make training only online and so on. At EPG, they're obliged to do that in this time, but I discussed with a lot of my colleagues, and they don't like that.
No.
Brigitte Martel, for example, you know her, and my colleague, and she said, it's boring.
Yeah, it is. We also had to put, I think, 2 of our groups, we made 2 sessions online, but we really had to do that. We were postponing up to the end, and then we just had to do that. And one was in Kazakhstan because we couldn't take a flight there. There was no flights. And if you fly, you need to spend at least 2 weeks on quarantine. So what we did, we made these people together in one hall, in one room, in one space. And 2 trainers were working from St. Petersburg online. So they had a big screen. Trainers were on the screen, but the group, at least the group was together. They were together. The group was united in one room. Somehow it worked, but of course it's not the same quality at all.
No, at all. No. So if you do that from time to time, it's okay. But a full training online, I don't believe in it.
Okay.
Or at least I would not be able to do it.
No. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say? Because I know that your time is limited and we spend, well, I mean, I would gladly talk to you again like that. We just set up another appointment, but maybe you want to say something else, just personally. Maybe that, well, I would put a coaching question. Is there something I haven't asked yet? Is there something you would like me to ask you?
We have no time, but one thing I would like to add is this kind of love between myself and Serge and your team in St. Petersburg. It has always been so important for Serge and Anne, and because Serge could speak Russian and so on, but we had so many links from years to years to years, and I would like to say it is still very important in my life. Your mother, Gina and Lena and so on, you when I came. And I had a lot of links with other institutes, but not love with other institutes.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to hear that, and of course I would pass that to the owners of our institute.
Yeah.
You are also a very special person for me personally, because you stayed in my house, you were a guest in my family, and we had lovely talks with wine and food and fondue and all these things. So I really do appreciate that. I mean, with this profession, I had a chance to talk to some really great people, and one of them is you. I am honored to be also, I was present in Serge and Anna's place in their apartment in Paris, in Paris. Well, in Paris, I'm switching languages already. So when you start to say about love to them, I feel the same.
Yeah, okay.
And when you say that you have such a special feelings to our institute, I do melt, of course. It's really it's really touching. Thank you very much for sharing that, for saying that.
Okay.
So I hope to see you once again online, and as soon as this crazy situation will decline, we need to plan your seminar in St. Petersburg. I'm looking forward to participate. It's always a great pleasure to be your student and to learn from you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Merci.
Merci.